Doing? Welcome to another episode of Be Wise Financial with Vincent Ambo. I am your host, Vincent Ambo. This is a ministry of Impact Family. Y'all, I am excited about this kind of work, this thing that we're doing here in this ministry, in this podcast. The question that we have been asking for a long time is God okay with us being rich? That's the question that we've been asking. Is God okay with us being rich? And we have done so many different, we have looked at it from so many different angles. But today I wanted to share a little bit more about how I've come to understand what is it that God has called us to do, and how is it when we apply the principles of God, how do we begin to really show and answer that question? As you all remember, one of the things that really had a big impact on my life financially is when I discovered that there was some things that just was not congruent with the God that I serve. Right. And so, as I've shared, I'd be worshiping God, praising God on Sunday, feeling free, feeling really connected on Sundays. And then on the rest of the days of the week, there was a guilt that I felt, a shame that I felt. And it was around, in particular, it was around this issue of finances. Now I'm very clear that we're whole in the Lord spiritually. We're made whole. There's nothing that takes away from us financially, or anything earthly that takes away from us. Those who are in Christ, we are free indeed, and we profess that. We believe that wholeheartedly. I attest to that. It wasn't that being financially took away from me. I also recognized that there was just some things that I wasn't experiencing the fullness of, as it relates to my freedom of joy, right? I wasn't experiencing the fullness of my freedom of joy, my freedom of peace that God had already given to me in the areas of finance. And it was showing itself in the areas of finances. And really where it turned around for me was beginning to understand that I needed to have a solid plan financially, right? So oftentimes, I think that many of us can connect with this, that we're just kind of shooting in the dark when it comes to our finances. We are just kind of going along to get along. We're just going with the flow, and we don't recognize sometimes the plan that is necessary, because it's not that we don't recognize, we don't know it in a lot of ways. We don't know the plan that we should have, so that way we can be successful financially. Now, well, you poll a majority of people, they'll mention things about budgeting, mention things about living below your means, mention a number of other things. But what we find is that it's not just about knowing what you're supposed to do, but how do we do what we're supposed to do? And what I begin to find out is, once I knew more clearly what the plan was that I needed to follow, then now I would orient all my actions in accordance to the plan. Because what I begin to understand a little bit more clearly, and what became more focused for me, was, where am I trying to go? Where am I leading my family? Where do we want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now? When we're standing in our present, and we're just peeking into the future, what do we see? And as I was looking into our future, and what I wanted for our future, in relationship to where we were in our present, there was just something that just wasn't connected. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? It was just like, man, what I'm doing right now is just not bringing me closer to where I want to get to later on. And so I realized that something really had to change. And if it doesn't change, this path that I'm on, I'm not going to reach my goals. Man, come on, somebody. I know you know what I'm feeling. That was good right there, right? That when we take a step back, and we're looking at where we want to go, we're thinking about, where do we want to end up? We're thinking about, what does the future look like in relationship to where we are at right now in our present? some of us are saying, man, I think I'm on the wrong road. I'm on the wrong track. And we need to find out, man, how do we get on the right track? And what was introduced to me that radically changed my life was the baby steps, as introduced through Dave Ramsey. And these baby steps, it really helped to hone in the the importance of having the right plan. Let me tell you, one of the plans that really stuck out to me, one of the steps that stuck out to me in this plan is the it's not even a baby step, it's the step on budgeting. I want to talk a little bit about budgeting and how that is our plan to help us to reach our our financial goals, to help us to reach our overall goals. And so for me, I had known that budgeting is a part of this. Budgeting is important. If you're not budgeting, then you're not sure on how to go. But my wife and I, what we did instead of budgeting, we would always project, not project, we would always reconcile. And we would take the receipts and we would look at what is cleared our account and reconcile it with our bank account. My wife was great about doing that. Me, not so much. My job was to, whenever I spent, to bring the receipts in so that she knew what had gone out so she can reconcile the account. So we were always reacting to what we had already done. We were always after we had done the damage, then now we're trying to assess what the damage really was. So we were recording a lot of times what we had already done. And what I began to learn in this is that when we were operating from that position, we were always in the reactive position. And that's the best that we could do at the time, right? Some of you are saying, man, I'm not even there yet. I get it. No, I totally understand. My wife was there. I wasn't quite there. We're just reacting to what we've already to the damage that's already been done. But then when I begin to learn that rather than just reacting, what can we do to be proactive? And I learned that in creating a budget, that's our way of getting proactive, of becoming proactive. That's our way of charting a course for where we want to go. Interestingly enough, I remember this when we set the budget. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And in large part, I was really nervous about the numbers. I didn't know what the numbers were going to look like. I didn't know how we were going to fare out. And so I was scared to do the budget, y'all. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm going to keep it 100 because y'all already know. Y'all was scared to do the budget because I thought that our situation was far worse than it was. And then I realized that in order for us to really address this problem, Vincent, you not being afraid. For God didn't give you the spirit of fear, but love, power, and sound minds, what God says in Timothy, right? What's written in Timothy. And I realized that if I'm going to accomplish my goals, then I can't operate from a scaredy cat, scared position, but I got to confront it. And so I realized that in putting the budget together, there were some other things that started happening to me. Not only now was I confronting my fear in terms of looking at the reality of the numbers and what they said, but it also began to give me a little sense of control. It started to give me a sense of clarity and understanding with our finances that I had never had before. My wife, as I shared, she's the one that started this off. She was good about recording. She's good about making sure we have it together. By the time we got to the place where we were budgeting, I kind of swooped in and started taking the responsibility more because I started to connect the dots and understood how budgeting really allowed us to create a plan for where we want to go. It shows us how to get there the quickest and the fastest. And everything that we do it in accordance with our budget. We set the budget. It gives us the sense of control because we dictate where and what happens with our budget. We put it on paper before the beginning of the month, before the month is out, in preparation for the next month. We're putting the budget together, creating the plan for how we're going to manage our finances. The craziest thing happened as a result. Yeah, I got some confidence, and I thought that that would be good. Yeah, the fear confronting the numbers, it lessened, and so forth, gave me a greater sense of control, and it gave me greater sense of direction for me and my family where we're gonna go. But here's the thing that it did that I was like, whoa, this thing, I'm convinced by this. It gave me and my family a raise. Y'all, we went from thinking and experiencing we didn't have enough to the point where we were able to have some extra money that we can decide to do what we want to do with it. Right there, I was convinced. I had known right there that we were on to something. And I want to encourage you today as you're looking at what the next steps are, and as you're looking at your dream, as you're looking at how do I begin to grab a hold of my finances, I want to encourage you that it starts off with planning. Some of you may not like the word budgeting, financial planning, um, money planning, money managing, budgeting, financial roadmap, whatever you want to call it. But I want to encourage you that as you're looking at your goals 5, 10, 15 years from now, that in the present right now, what you can begin to do to chart the course to get there is you can do that by budgeting, looking at what comes in and looking at what goes out. And you get to determine whatever goes in your budget. It gives you the freedom and the license to do whatever it is that you want to do with the money that you know that comes in. And I guarantee you, you'll see an increase that you had never seen before. Man, I would love to be a part of that with you. I'd love to work on that with you. If there's anything that you guys would like some help on, feel free to reach out to us at Impact Family Christian Counseling Network. Remember, we want you to have the money, but don't let the money have you. Till the next time, peace.